World politics were forever changed with the explosion of Little Boy in Hiroshima, 1945. Likewise, nuclear power and its role in the energy transition continues to be a topic of heated debate. But what no one seems to care much about is nuclear waste, the material that is left over after nuclear energy production, research, or even many industrial processes. We must start to think about how to manage and govern the nuclear waste that we have already produced, and even more importantly, the waste that we will produce in the future. When most people think of governing nuclear waste, national governments come to mind as the responsible authority. However, a significant part of Dutch nuclear waste management is also governed by the EU. In fact, the EU is actually quite involved in the way its member states manage their nuclear waste. For one, the EU imposes regulations on countries, such as that nuclear waste can only be exported to other countries under very specific conditions. They also monitor the amount of nuclear waste present within the EU and make sure that storage is done safely. Finally, they also carry out research that may make the storage of nuclear waste easier in the future. But what if we went further? What if we would set up a joint EU nuclear waste depository? That would be a facility where all member states can collectively store their nuclear waste for the coming 10,000 years. After all, the EU is the place where we can come up with collective solutions and bring us closer to a future that is desirable for all of us. Indeed, a joint nuclear depository would have several advantages. The biggest potential advantage of a joint EU depository is that nuclear waste is stored in one central place in Europe. Currently, each country is responsible for their own nuclear waste storage facilities. Having one joint solution would make long-term nuclear waste storage a lot cheaper, especially for countries that only have little nuclear waste. Another thing is that some countries in Europe are more suitable for a deep geological depository than others. Ideal would be a place with stable geological conditions between 250 to 5,000 meters deep in the ground. A joint EU depository would thus be technically easier as the best geological location in the whole EU can be chosen. In addition, some countries like France, Sweden and Finland have already started to plan and even construct these sites. A joint solution would prevent every member state from having to reinvent the wheel. On the other hand, there are also disadvantages and challenges connected to a joint EU depository. If we really want to develop that idea, some questions should be considered. Do countries that store the waste receive any compensation, fees, or other benefits? It is important to start a conversation about these questions. Indeed, this is one of the main challenges of a shared EU depository, the social acceptance. Few people would mind storing the nuclear waste in another country. However, the resistance is already high for storing national nuclear waste at a specific national location. Imagine what it would be like to have to store nuclear waste of another country. It has been suggested that this could be decided on a voluntary basis. But which country would come forward to offer up itself? Getting into contact with all the different stakeholders in the participating countries may also be more challenging at an international scale. We would need to find an intergovernmental agreement between all EU countries, which may take a long time. Decisions simply get more difficult the more people are involved. In total, it might take several decades before construction of the depository can begin. During this time, there's always the danger that a member state may back out of the negotiations, increasing political and financial pressure on the remaining countries. Another challenge with an EU-wide approach is that we don't know how the EU will develop over the next 10,000 years. As a multinational organization with many parties, conflicts of interests may cause disintegration of the EU. Who will govern the shared depository if the EU breaks down? Finally, it is important to note that a multinational approach does not completely free member states of responsibility. Even if the EU develops a joint approach, every member state would still need to manage their short-term storage as well as transport. In addition, a national plan is still required as a backup. So, how do we weigh all these advantages and drawbacks against each other? Economically and technically speaking, a joint depository would have considerable upsides. On the other hand, political and societal issues with long-term nuclear waste storage amplify for an EU depository compared to a national solution. Ultimately, this is a decision that depends on your norms and values and is therefore intrinsically political. But one thing is for certain, nuclear waste is not going away on its own. We as a society must engage in a debate to find a joint solution. And for that, all options should be openly debated.